Sitting here with Jacob. Really great. I'm excited to chat with you here. To get started, if you could just introduce yourself, tell me a little bit about your background, that'd be great.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I'm Jacob Rivas. I am currently a sourcer at Weight Watchers. I'm in charge of global D&I. I'm a senior sourcer there. Originally, I was a project manager for about 7 years. Didn't enjoy it, wanted to do something new. I jumped into recruiting. At my 1 year anniversary, I received the GEMS Top 10 in the World Award for response rates, and so that's how I knew I found my calling. And then I just kept on moving forward from there, which leads us to here.
How did you win that award? Why do you have such high response rates?
My approach to messaging is to be personable. I don't want to sound like everybody else. Even now, I still get outreach as a project manager. People are still wanting to reach out to me, and it sounds like a robot. I sound like a number one like everybody else. And so I talk about what they might want to hear. And so the layoffs have been going on right now. I'll mention, hey, it's scary out there. I'm a little nervous too. We don't know what's going on with the economy. There's layoffs, there's hiring freezes. But I have some info that might make you feel a little bit better. And right now at Weight Watchers, we're doing all these great things. And so I'll include a little blurb from that and just keep it casual, saying, if you want to have an exploratory conversation, no commitment, let's connect. And little things like that catch people's attention, and they feel like you're being personable. They're not just, again, one in a million or a template.
How should companies be thinking about DE&I as it relates to sourcing? When you focus on reaching out to diverse candidates and engaging them, what are some either tactics or strategies that companies should be using in order to reach those audiences?
That's another really good question. I think one of the first things to keep in mind is there's no nice way to say this. You don't want anyone to feel singled out. You don't want anyone to sound like a token, that you're just reaching out to them because of their background, whether it be based off of what you see on their profile in regards to skin color or any inferences you can make. You want to approach them as if they were just anybody else that you're reaching out to because of their skill set. In regards to the diversity aspect, there's a lot of things that companies can be doing internally with employment brand, the ERGs, hosting events, and getting communities involved. Being able to include that in your outreach and say, hey, we're doing some really cool things. Here's some links at the bottom. Including those to really kind of catch their attention. I think that is really going to go a long way versus trying to find a polite way to integrate that. I noticed your diversity, let's talk.
Yeah, and when you think about engaging diverse candidates in general, do you think about it differently from just general sourcing, or is it really just you're focusing on segment of the market that you really want to focus on attracting, and otherwise it's all the same? Or are there distinctions in how you approach the work that you do?
The challenge there is going to be really on what the business would like. The first part is to figure out what the business wants to move forward with. What's their goals? What are they trying to accomplish? Are there specific groups that they want to help bolster and increase the probability of having them being brought on? And once you establish that, the challenging part is your go-to-market strategy. How are you going to find these people? Everybody uses LinkedIn. We all can use Google. But how are you going to find individuals that are from an underrepresented group? There's a handful of different ways. It's still the Wild West. You can go to the U.S. Census. I stacked ranked the names, surnames for Latinx from 1 to 1,000 based off of the population size from 30 years ago in the U.S. And I use that to help me do my search to be able to find Latinx candidates based off of whatever profile I'm looking for. And strategies like that can really help people go a long way to incorporate diversity. But the challenge is following the business directives.
As a sourcer, are you thinking about the candidate experience past kind of that first point of engagement? Or is your focus really, let me identify and engage candidates to convert them into our hiring funnel broadly? Kind of where do you see your role, the handoff between your role and either the recruiter or the rest of the TA team?
That's another really good question. A lot of people think that for sourcers, once you submit a candidate, you're done. Sometimes they say, oh, we want to do the screens as well. The path to follow them is essentially to offer, extend. If they accept, that could be the recruiter's goal, to get them to accept. Once I get them into the pipeline, I like to look and watch each part of the pipeline to assess our health. to see, are there any biases going on? Am I on track to what we're looking for? Am I completely just missing the mark? And following those candidates throughout the process is going to help me as a sourcer know what I need to go back and improve upon, but also understand what the company, what the business is really doing through each stage. Are we successfully being no bias, or are there parts that are sleeping through that we should really go and reevaluate?
So if a company came to you and said, hey, our talent pipeline isn't as diverse as we want it to be, and we see diversity as a competitive advantage, so we really want a more diverse pipeline, where would you start with them? What would be the things that you would look at first in order to try to understand, why that pipeline might not be where they want it to be?
I think a great spot to start is with yourself. Have the business look, what are our numbers right now? What is the data showing us? What is our spread within the company? What are the current pipelines looking like in regards to diversity spread that we're able to infer or that we have solid numbers for? And once you have those, you can start to work with them to put together, are we looking for Black, Latinx, LGBT, veterans, maybe people who are coming from different HBCUs, however you want to, Asian Pacific Islanders, any way you want to establish those criteria, that's going to be based upon where you're currently at. And once you have the next step and what we want to look for, then you can put together your execution strategy. But really, you need to evaluate where you're starting.
And should companies be thinking about their, their diversity sourcing initiatives distinctly from general sourcing, or is this just a component of it that should be wrapped in? Like, should the same sourcer be trying to build kind of a broad swath of a pipeline, talent pipeline, or should it be kind of distinct roles within the organization?
Essentially, the goal would be to have it be integrated in the process. Right now, you might have a dedicated resource because we're still trying to figure out how are we going to do this, where can we execute. We need to dedicate more time to figure out, is the candidate pool there? Are the roles that we're looking for? Can we bolster them? A lot of times, if somebody's a lot more senior, we're realizing that if you're in a director level, our current generation is just about getting there. So diversity starts to trail off. In engineering, what we've realized, it trails off as you start to get to director and above. And taking those things into consideration, as well as once the team has everything in place, we're able to then say, all right, you're going to work on this as well. We're going to do 2 weeks. We're going to put an emphasis on different types of diversity. We're going to incorporate that in, and it's going to get to the point where you're not going to even think about it. It's just going to be embedded in our process.
And how do you think about the impact of unconscious bias or bias in general, as in terms of your role in the organization as a sourcer, but then more broadly in terms of how you're engaging candidates?
In a perfect world, we'd be able to say, I don't have a bias, but like you said, there's the unconscious part. With moving forward in sourcing and recruiting or any of those aspects, you really have to leave it all at the door, and it's really who's the best candidate, who is the best person for this role. Yes, I might have gone and found underrepresented groups, but at the end of the day, it's really about whose skill set matches best. You can go through and see if there's bias. There could be a big array of reasons, but when you go through, like I mentioned earlier, you go to the pipeline health, each stage of the process to see where the fall off is. Are there biases being built? But essentially, the main focus should be who's the best for the role.
What is it that you love about what you do?
I was going to be a firefighter for a while. The wait line in California is years. It took them 5 years to get back to me, be able to say, we want to talk to you now. I had an opportunity within recruiting to start making an impact on people's lives. There's not a better feeling when you speak to somebody and they get excited about a role and then they get brought on and now you're on the same team and you can talk to them and they say, thank you, this is life-changing because you're able to offer them more money, a better experience, a bigger future. And currently I'm at Weight Watchers, so I get to double up. I get to work on a product that helps improve people's lives, improves their health, it makes an impact. And that's really been a huge component for me to make me excited about what I'm doing.
Do you think you'd be able to be as successful if the company that you were working at wasn't speaking to you in terms of the mission as much as you have right now at Weight Watchers?
I do believe so. I was in agency prior. We all get our start in agency. The directives there were very, every second is a penny. Just put your head down and get work done. And it didn't really resonate with me, and I wasn't happy. Once I had moved on to box, it was starting to get a little bit better there. Internally, their focus was amazing, but again, it was an enterprise product. And now that I'm Weight Watchers, I feel like it's all come together, and it's motivated me to really up-level the organization as a whole too, because they're working to be a modern brand and get themselves out there, and to be able to get in front of more people is really exciting.
Last question for you.
Sure.
So let's imagine there's some high school student or college student out there, and they're watching this right now, and they like the sound of the work that you're doing. What would be your advice to them in terms of how to follow the path that you followed and get into the type of work that you do?
Ooh. Fail. Fail fast, fail hard, don't give up. Learn from those mistakes, because every one of those missteps are an opportunity to build resilience. You learn from those. Next time you're going to do it better, you're going to do it different. I had a professor one time tell me, go get fired. Go out there, get fired 2 or 3 times. It'll be the best thing that ever happened to you. When you're in the middle of getting fired, you don't realize this is going to be good for me, but in hindsight, you learn so much. And I would say, don't be afraid to make a mistake.
Thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me here and spend a minute with you. I've appreciated this. I appreciated getting to know you, and thank you for sharing.
Yep, absolutely.